Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to a very special edition of PHLY Flyers. Of course, my name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me, as always, is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor, and our special guest today, original Flyer, two-time Stanley Cup champion, Joe Watson, in studio. On April 2nd, your book is coming out. Thundermouth, Memoirs of a Broad Street Bully and NHL Lifer. I'm really looking forward to getting to read the physical copy. I got to peruse the digital, but I can't focus on a digital copy. I need the hardcover.
Well, you know what? You're right. I have no idea what digital does, but modern technology doesn't do a lot for me. Never has. So you know what? I'm not familiar with that, but I know the book is out, and I've done very well with the book in about 3.5, 4 weeks now, and it's going very well. Really is. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely outstanding to hear. I just want to know, some people, it takes a long time to get these projects together. I interviewed Angelo Cataldi a few weeks ago, and he wrote his book in a couple of days, basically. Yeah. How long were you working on this?
3 years.
3 years.
And I'll tell you where I came up with this idea. We went to Russia. I took our alumni team to Russia about 6 years ago. And we had 15 tickets, and we were only using 10. And Brad Marsh comes up to me, he says, "We should bring Bill Meltzer with us." I says, "Fine, bring Bill, sure," because everything was paid for. So Bill came, and while we were over there, we played 4 different areas, and wherever we played, we had people there that had Flyer jerseys on. I says, "Holy God, I can't believe it. I can't tell Mr. Snider this." But anyway, Bill was doing these stories, and we're getting good response on these stories about our team, our trip over there. So on the way back, I talked to Bill about it, and I said, "Bill, if I ever decide to do a book, I'm going to get you to write the thing." And about 1.5 years later, I came to the conclusion with my wife prodding me I should do it because I have a lot of stories. And I said, "Okay, we'll do it." So one Wednesday morning, I phoned him up, and I said, "I'm ready to do this book." And it took us 3.5 years to do it. But it's a great book. If you love stories, you want to know about the Flyers history, the Broad Street Bully history, it's a book for you.
So is it more of a kind of from year to year, or is it just a collection of the individual stories?
It starts out when I was 3.5 years old, and it just goes till I'm 80 now. So there's a lot of years there. But there's stories. I have pictures associated with the story. When you get a book, they normally have all the pictures in the middle.
Yeah.
Where that's not with this book. It's a little more expensive to do that, but when there's a good story and there's a picture there, it's associated with the story. So you don't have to revert back when you do get in the middle of a book and revert, well, where was this story? Where was this picture associated with? So that's what I decided to do, and it worked out well.
Were you, throughout your career and your whole time coming up, are these your pictures, your personal archive? Did you kind of know you were going to want to save these for something one day?
Well, my mother was a hoarder just like I am. and what happened was she passed on here about 10 years ago, and she had all these albums, photo albums and stories about myself and my brother Jim, and of course the other boys of the family. And she gave them to me, so I brought them down to Philadelphia with me, and I started looking at all these photos and all these stories. And I told Bill, I have stories going back to when I was 3.5. I have pictures when I was 3.5 years old. And he says, "Really?" I says, "Yeah." And then got stories about this and that, photos of this and that. But yeah, they go back to 1946, 47. Yeah.
That's some absolutely incredible history.
Yeah.
It's now 2024, Joe, and it is coming up on the 50th anniversary of the Flyers' first Stanley Cup. Does it feel like 50 years? Does it feel like 50 years?
Time goes fast, Billy. It has gone fast, because I can remember vividly, I was the last guy to touch the puck when Orr shot the puck down the ice towards our net, and Bernie went by the net, and I was the first guy to approach the puck, but I didn't touch it. There was 8 seconds to go in the game. So the first guy near me was Wayne Cashman, so I touched it in 4 seconds. But what happened was there's so much noise and pandemonium in the building that the timekeeper didn't hear the whistle blow for the icing. So we let the clock run down to 1 second before we realized what was going on. And And hell, there's people all over the ice or on the over. And the glass wasn't that high then those days, so people were jumping over and everything else, and would have taken a long time to clear the ice. So, but anyway, I gave the puck to the linesman with 4 seconds to go, thinking, okay, we're going to have a face-off. Well, Terry Chris made a beeline from the bench to the linesman, grabbed the puck, and he has the puck today. He still has the puck today. And the NHL, I mean, the National Hockey League want the puck because of our first expansion team to win it, but he won't give it up.
He won't give it up.
He won't give it up, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't give it up either. The heck.
So I've spoken with you, Joe, a few times over the years.
Charlie, yep.
You're a guy who loves to tell stories. You have a lifetime's worth of stories. I'm sure that not every single story that you had could fit in the book. Any particular? You have one story that you kind of wish you could have fit in there?
Oh, gosh. Well, okay, Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Michael Jackson, the singer.
Yeah.
So in 1976, it was July of 76, they were playing the Valley Forge Music Fair. And for some reason, they wanted to play softball. So they contacted, Valley Forge Music Fair contacted the Flyers, and they called me and said if I get a baseball or a softball team to go play slow pitch. I said, yeah. So I got Bob Daly, Ricky McLeish, I got Ricky LaPointe, a bunch of other guys. And now I don't even remember a guy named Charlie Swift. He was an announcer for the Eagles for years and years and years. And he's gone now. But anyway, and then we played against him, and Michael Jackson was a pitcher. And I never thinking how big this guy would become, how big he would become. We had a chance to play softball against him. And I talked to my wife about it. In fact, there's a show out right now about Live Aid. Then they made the song. And I watched it the other night, and Michael Jackson was in the thing. And I said to my wife, can you imagine I played softball against this guy and how big he became, and everything else. So that's really not in the book. And then there's a bunch of other ones too, We didn't have room for everything. But, Muhammad Ali. We were in St. Louis in 1976, the Chase Park Plaza Hotel, waiting for our pregame meal. I saw these guys walking up the hallway, and I looked. It looks like Don King. That is Don King. I could tell by his hair.
Right.
I said, Bernie, that's Don King. And I said, oh, okay. And so and then I looked. That's Ali. That's Ali there too. So Ali was living in Cherry Hill at the time when him and Joe Fraser were training for the fights.
Right.
So I saw Ali, and we went up to Ali, and I says, Ali, we're the Broad Street Bullies. You guys are? I said, yeah. He says, okay, come on over here. I want to talk to you. So he went like this to me, and he went like that to Bernie. He says, each one of these are for you guys. And that was Ali. What a bunch of humor. And then I did a couple card shows with him, and what a fine gentleman. Oh, boy. And it was very sad he went through what he went through, the poor guy. But, boy, he was great for boxing. He was great. And I feel bad for him and Joe Fraser fighting one another. I mean, they're both world champions, and I felt bad the way it turned out and everything else. But yeah, that's another one. Oh, God, there's all kinds of stories. All kinds of stories I could talk about. Some that I couldn't divulge to you guys.
Fair.
With the presence of a young lady. That wouldn't be good. So we'll leave it at that.
We'll have to wait for the movie, Joe. You spent 11 seasons in Orange and Black. You started out in Boston. You come over in the original expansion draft.
Yeah.
So you've seen the entire history of the Flyers organization.
Yep.
How has it changed over the years? What's the biggest difference between when you played and now, and what you've seen along the way?
The game, Bill, the game is so fast. So there's so much speed in this game, and emphasis on speed. And quite 99% of the players that played when I played, maybe 95, probably couldn't play in this game. I mean, I couldn't play with this game with the speed they have. Everything, sure, everything changes as decades or years go by, but these players are so fast and so quick. And the emphasis, like I say, is on speed. And we were a physical team. We weren't a speedy team. We had maybe one or two guys. McLeish could probably play in this era. My brother Jimmy, I think, because Jimmy was a fast skater. DuPont, but the rest of us, we weren't a lot of fast skaters. And when I look back in 1967, you probably don't know this, but when we lost the roof in the Spectrum in February, and we didn't have any home games. We were playing the last 20 games. We're on the road, and we're like vagabonds traveling all over. And if you don't have any cash coming in, you can't keep the franchise going. And Mr. Snider was having problems, and he went to 5 different banks in Philadelphia. And 4 of them turned him down. He went to the last one, Gerard Trust. He said he needed an infusion of $2 million. If he doesn't get the $2 million, he's not going to be able to keep this franchise going. And he went to a guy named Bill Bear, who was in charge. He was a Harvard guy. He played hockey at Harvard and a big hockey fan. He had season tickets with the Flyers. And Ed told him he needed $2 million. He wouldn't keep the franchise going. So anyway, lo and behold, this is a Wednesday. Thursday morning, he went to his bank at 9 o'clock in the morning. There was $2 million sitting in his bank, and the rest is history. The rest is history.
And now the team is worth $1.65 billion.
Yeah, I believe it.
Just a quick infusion of cash, and 50 years later,
solid investment, right?
Not too
but
shabby.
Ed did very well for himself. He was a wise businessman, and so he. But you're right. It wouldn't be so nice to see him. Manya, I remember I went and visited him. They took Bernie and I and Clarky out to visit him out in California 3 weeks before he passed on, and so we're having a great time. And the team was out west, so they showed up at the house too, and we watched the hockey game and together, and we were joking around and laughing and everything else. And he was all skin and bone at the time. So as we're leaving next morning, he calls me over. He says, "Joe, he says, people might know each other 50 years. We've known each other 50 years, and we've worked together 50 years. I says, "Holy Christ, Ed." And it sticks out in my mind as if this happened yesterday. The impact that made on me when he said that. And I often think about it, and I have tears in my eyes sometimes when I think about Ed, because he was so good to all of us. Not only 1 or 2 of us, he was so good to all of us. And just a great owner. All he wanted to do is win. There's nothing wrong wanting to win. And so that was a tough time, but great guy. Loved to have a good time on the ice as well as off. They didn't have a good time on the. Well, sometimes he did, but we had good times, and I often think back to those days. Yeah.
Just when John Tortorella was hired in 2022, one of his stated goals was returning the Flyers to that premier status as an organization that it had been, most of my life and really well before that.
Sure.
Like, what does that mean to you? Like, to be a Flyer and have it be one of the most respected organizations in the sport?
Boy, you know what? I don't know. I've never met John Tortorella, but just listening to him on TV, he makes a lot of sense. He really does. A lot of coaches get on there and they start rambling this and that and everything else. They use the same cliches as everybody else, but not him. He's different. And he's really helping these young guys grow up and become men. And it's so nice to see that he's taken this job and nurtured these young kids. And I see nothing but great things with the Flyers because of this guy. I know coaches wear their will coming out after 4 or 5 years. I hope that doesn't happen to him, because he's doing a great job with this team. And who could predict? I don't think anybody in their minds would predict the Flyers would be doing as well as they are this year at this time of the year. And they're a bona fide playoff team now. They are. If they win 2 or 3 of the next games, right, they're a bona fide team to make the playoffs. And of course, all the people that are involved in hockey, and especially the writers in that, they never had the Flyers picked to make, and I never certainly had the Flyers picked to make the playoffs. But I remember in September, I went over to training camp for some reason. I was over there with Brad Marsh, and I'm watching the Flyers in their training. I says, "Holy Christ, these guys are fast." And I said to the guys we were sitting there with, I says, "This team is going to surprise a lot of teams. They really are." And boy, have they ever surprised a lot of teams. They really have. And it's wonderful to watch. I love going to the game because the emphasis on speed, and they play a good system. The Flyers play a good system. And they played a good game last night with the exception of the first period. Thank God for Eriksen. But I look for bigger and better things in this team, and I can see this team doing very well in the next 2 or 3 years and accomplish the ultimate goal is to win the Stanley Cup. I really do.
Kind of jumping off on that, I think there's been talk over the last few years that the Flyers kind of needed to find their way again, both on the ice and off the ice.
Yeah.
You saw over this past month, you had, a guy, Cutter Gauthier, decides he doesn't want to join the Flyers. And I think it really brought the entirety of Flyers world together in this feeling of, if you don't want to be here, we don't want you here.
Right.
I guess, for you, obviously someone who is kind of the ultimate Flyer in terms of being in and around this organization for as long as you have, what does it mean to you to be a Flyer and kind of having that feeling of, you have to be a certain type of person to want to be part of this organization?
Oh boy, that's a great question. You know what? The ultimate goal is to win. And that's the mentality that the Flyers organization has and has had for many, many years. And then they got away from that. But being a Flyer, a former Flyer, it doesn't matter where I go. We were a friend of mine just came back from Prague recently, about 4 months ago. He gets in the cab in Prague, and the driver asked him, he says, "Where are you from?" He says, "Philadelphia." He says, "Home of the Bullies," the guy said. The cabbie said, "Home of the Bullies." He said, "What?" "Home of the Broad Street Bullies." I mean, my God, that's an iconic name. It is. I just got a book out, and I sent books to Adelaide, Australia. Now, Adelaide, Australia, that's 10,000 miles away from here, for Christ's sake. And I sent some to Hungary, Budapest, Hungary, and quite a few to London area. And they remember the Broad Street Bullies. So it's really an iconic name. And I must say that it means so much to me, and it always will mean as much to me as it possibly could in my life. I know when I talk to people, they talk about the Broad Street Bullies and the Flyers, and just the things that happened to this organization. The Flyers have had many, many bad things happen to them in this organization. Losing Pelly Lindbergh, losing other people too to accidents and so on and so forth. But once a Flyer, always a Flyer, and once a bully, always a bully. Even though I wasn't that type of player, somebody had to kill the penalty, so that was my job for my brother and I to try to kill penalties. Because lo and behold, we had many, many penalties. But I'm so proud to be called a Flyer. I really am, and a Broad Street Bully too.
That connection that this city has with the Broad Street Bullies, I didn't grow up getting to watch you guys.
Yeah.
There are plenty of teams from an earlier generation. Like we talked before the show, like the 80 Phillies, they win it. The 83 Sixers.
Yeah.
I don't feel the connection to them the way I do the Broad Street. Like, why?
Yeah. You know what? It's funny you say that, because I was at a banquet a couple of weeks ago, the Philadelphia Sports Writers Banquet. Were you there, Charlie?
I was not, no.
No. So Joe Conklin got up, and he's making fun of everybody, and he was doing a great job. And he says, "There will never be another team in Philadelphia like the Broad Street Bullies. People remember the Bullies more than any other team that's won the championship in this city." And I think the other teams are a little upset he said that, but it's true. It's bloody well true. And I remember Joe. I said, "Joe, good way to stick it to them, Joe." I told him after those words you said. I thought they were great, but you know what? I can honestly say all my teammates, like we had a thing here a couple weeks ago. We played a game, and some of my teammates came in from all over the country, North America, and we regale a lot of times the stories that we had, and when we had them in the 70s, and we have so many good laughs, but I'm so proud to be called a Flyer and a Broad Street Bully.
So speaking to that, the alumni game that you guys just did, you've obviously been a staple of these alumni teams for years.
Yeah.
This is your last one, definitely?
Yeah, Charlie, it certainly is. I'm up in age now. Holy God,
well,
man.
7 consecutive decades. You're not shooting for 8?
Well, you know what? No, because that's another 8 years to go. But I remember Brad asked me, he said, "Joe, you got to come out and play. We'll do 7 decades." I said, "What do you mean? 7 decades of Flyers hockey, number of years with the Flyers, and now the alumni teams and everything else." And I said, "If you feel that way about it, I'll help you." So I said, "Okay, I'll play." But holy God Almighty, oh boy, I was a little apprehensive. But I've never wore a helmet in my life.
Oh wow!
Until that game, they said I had to wear a helmet. I couldn't play, so I didn't know how to put the helmet on. God, and it was kind of crazy, but playing in different eras with the guys, like Lindros, how what an influence Lindros had whether it's yay or nay, in the city of Philadelphia and the Broad Street Bullies. You know, and Johnny Leclerc works for the organization now. I'm certainly glad they're bringing back all these, Patrick Sharp, you know, these guys that played against us and played with us and everything else, and bringing them back. And they're doing a great job. I mean, our manager's doing a great job. With Dan Hilferty at the helm, and then you got Keith Jones and Danny Briere. We're building for the future. Man, the future is going to be here very, very shortly with this team.
I have to ask about the alumni game. The original Flyers, the old guard, kind of aging out. Like, this is your last one.
Yeah.
Now, I saw Bernie in 2012. That was a while ago now.
Yeah.
But it's now a lot of guys, the 90s teams, the mid-2000s. Mike Richards is back. You mentioned Lindros, that group of guys from those eras. Are you guys bonded just in that you're always, once a Flyer, always a Flyer? What's the dynamic like since it's not your teammates anymore?
I think we are somewhat, mind you, I think some of the older teams or the younger teams are not familiar with the Broad Street Bullies that much, and they don't know the history. I don't think they know the history of what we accomplished. Because I talk to them sometimes about this and that, and they look at me, oh, really, that happened? I said, oh, that happened, yeah, you know. And but to see these guys that I watched play, never played with them or against them, it was very rewarding to be out in the ice with them. And I play with Mark Howe, I play with Kimmo Timonen. Thank God I play with those two guys. They're skilled players. They can still skate and shoot and pass and everything else. And I wanted to get them the puck as quickly as possible to get rid of the damn thing because I couldn't move. But just having an opportunity to play with the guys was very rewarding for myself. It really was.
That's great. Now, when you showed up, you asked me about the hoodie I'm wearing, and it's our merch, and I didn't put it together that I'm wearing a hoodie that says Russia on it.
I know.
Against the guy who scored the goal against Russia. Now, I do have to ask, if you could only choose one. Now, you're wearing the ring. I mean, you got two of them. Yeah. But winning the cup or beating the Russians? What was the bigger?
Oh, well, you know, winning the first cup was bigger. The second was beating the Russians.
Okay.
When we went to Russia 5 years ago, I was the only guy that played in Russia and the only guy that played only a Russian there wasn't one Russian that I played against in '76 that played in those games in Russia. So when we got there, I got interviewed a lot because all they want to do is talk about what the Flyers, Alumni, the Broad Street Bullies, how they dismantled the Soviet Red Army team in '76. And I said, well, you know, you weren't even around. Oh, no, Mr. Watson, it's a grain in that history what the Broad Street Bullies did to our hockey team, the Soviet Red Army. We thought we were the best team in the world. Well, you were the second best. But they want to talk about that more so than the games we played. More so the game. There was a girl there. She had to be about 30 years old. She read up all about the Bullies and the team and everything else. And like I mentioned earlier on, wherever we went, we had alumni games. Wherever we went to 9 different European countries to play alumni games over the 30-some years. And the last one was Russia. And it doesn't matter where we go, man. The Flyers jerseys are very prominent in the crowd. We had 13,000 people that came to see us play in oh God, what's the name of the town? Not Moscow, but St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg. And they had Kovalchuk, they had all these guys and everything else, and they had our game first and it was sold out, and then 3 hours later they had another game and that sold out. But doesn't matter where we played, in a place called Kazan, and the president of Kazan is a hockey player. He loves the Flyers, you know, and he loved the Flyers. So he played in the game, and the game ended up 5-5. It was in a tie. So I said to Freddie Kasivi, our goalie, he played for the Hershey Bears. He won a couple championships in the American League. I said, Freddie, if he comes in and takes a shot, let him score, because if he scores, he'll throw the biggest party in Russia. And that's what happened. He scored, and we had a big, huge party, and the vodka was flowing very freely, and the beer and everything else, the food. Oh, my God. So they treated us royally, the Russians. They really didn't. And Putin had okay the whole thing. And the guy in command, the guy that was with us for 10 days, he went to school at Duke. He went to school at Duke.
Oh, wow.
And he wanted to stay in America. And Putin says, no, you're coming back to work for me. And that was it. But he was really a nice guy. He spoke very good English. I was surprised when he told me he went to Duke. And he said, I wanted to stay there, but I was called home. Yeah, I was called home, and there's nothing I could do about that, he said. Yeah.
Joe, you obviously said that this is your last alumni game. I don't think they're going to be pulling you out of retirement again.
Hibernation.
We'll see.
Oh,
but do you even if you're no longer in the games, do you still feel the connection with the organization? Do you still feel like you're a part of it?
Oh, sure. You know why? Because I go down and I work at the games. I entertain people. I go to boxes and everything else, and just go mingle with people and everything else. And they want the alumni down there. And I haven't missed a game this year. Haven't missed a game. So I feel very close to the organization. And I just got to meet Dan there, Dan Hilferty. About 5-6 months ago. And of course, I've known Danny a long time, and Keith Jones. And I feel very close to them. They always say, don't be a stranger. We want you to come over, come on down. And I'd like to go down to the dressing room and talk to the players, but I don't think we're allowed down there. At least we weren't allowed there when Ron Hextall was the general manager. Ronnie never liked the alumni. He didn't.
We heard stories about something.
Oh, boy, he didn't like the alumni. He didn't. And he doesn't like Schultz, and how Schultz dismantled his father, tore him to pieces. But
Is
anyway,
that really where it all stems from?
But anyway, the one thing I want to do, and I'm going to talk to them, I says, you know what I used to, when I was in sales, I sold a lot of advertising, and I used to take my clients down to the dressing room because we had carte blanche to go to the dressing room after the games and take clients down there and introduce the people. And damn it, if I did that, the deal was done for next year already. Done, the guy, the managers or whoever they were in charge of the funds and the company, bring their kids in, meet their kids. The players would meet the kids and everything else. And it was a home run for me. It really was. And when I first started selling in '85, Mr. Snider had 36 tickets that he used for friends. And I found out about this. So I go to him, I says, Ed, there are no tickets available. No tickets available. Why don't you give me those 36 tickets? And I'll keep them in my name, and I'll get people to advertise it, because that's the only way they're going to get tickets. So lo and behold, I had the tickets for about 8 or 9 years, those 36 tickets. And they brought a lot of revenue into the building just because he gave me the tickets to use to give the clients. And I kept control of them. They had to buy the tickets, the season tickets. I kept control of them for 8 or 9 years. And then, of course, we went into the lull, and we didn't do well for a few years, so I gave them back. But that was it, man. You're darn right. The ultimate dollar. Yep. And so I did I did very well in sales. I really did. Yeah.
That, I guess, family atmosphere, like you could go directly to Mr. Snider and those things. And we heard that under the Ron Hextall tenure, there was a separation with the alumni. It seems like they're trying to bring that family feel back to things. Has there been more of that recently?
Oh, sure.
Is there still a big disconnect?
No, there's no disconnect. With Brad Marsh as our president, our alumni. So our alumni association has never been in better health than it is now with Brad Marsh. Brad Marsh has taken our alumni level to another level. And we have a good rapport with the Flyers. And you can tell by the players that come down to the games now. Normally they're, you might see 1 or 2 players at a game. Now you see 8 or 9 or 10 guys sometimes at the game with their families and everything else. So it's a good connection between the Flyers and the alumni. I remember we first started our alumni team in 1984. We played our first game against the Delaware State Troopers, and we got $500 for the game. So I gave each guy $25. I took the rest of the money, and I saved it until we had enough money to buy uniform, to get uniforms. But in the meantime, I went to Jay Snider. I said, Jay, I start the alumni, and I think we need uniforms. He said, well, you guys can get them yourself. I said, what do you mean? You don't want to support us? So anyway, no, we're not going to give. I said, okay, fine. So I told his dad. Oh my God, Jay got upset because he approached me and everything else. And he says, why'd you go to my dad? I said, well, we had to do something. I mean, you weren't going to give us the money to buy uniforms. So I went to Ed, and Jay was a little upset about it. But anyway, we've cleared the air since then, so we're fine. But Oh yeah, Ed was all upset because hell, we're spreading the word about the alumni, and not only in North America, but like I said, we went to Europe 9 different times. We went to Hawaii. We didn't play in Hawaii, but we went there. But we went to other countries, and he used to always ask me when we come back, "Did you see people flyer jerseys?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Beautiful. We're doing something right if that's the case in Europe." Yeah,
that's absolutely outstanding. You have anything else, Charlie?
I think I'm good. This is a great interview.
Joe, we could probably sit here and ask for stories all
you know,
day.
I could talk for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Really.
I would love to listen to stories all day,
Yeah.
but buy the book. You want to hear the stories, just buy the book.
You know what? It's Joe Watson, JoeWatsonOfficial.com.
JoeWatsonOfficial.com. That's the book is Thundermouth, Memoirs of a Broad Street Bully and NHL Lifer. This has been a blast, Joe. Don't be a stranger. You ever just want to talk? We're here.
Well, you know where I'm at. You guys get a hold of me. I'll be back. I love this. Is wonderful. Nice and relaxing, you know. Heck yeah.
That's what we're all about. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you all for watching and listening. And we will be back for post game on Thursday.
We all silly like the mayor.